Welcome back to the Astrocast. I'm your host, Drew. Today is Thursday, July 31st, 2025. The new moon is here. If you haven't had a chance to see it, I would highly recommend that. You wouldn't know it here in Charlotte because we've had a lot of cloudy weather. Anyhow, so happy to be back with you guys. I realize it is indeed late July, which I believe is what I said on the last episode before I went off on vacation down to Florida for a week. And here I am in late July, just as promised. So got a lot to catch you up on today. Obviously, the trip down to Florida was with the family, and it was incredible, to put it lightly. I was able to check off quite a few bucket list items while I was down there, which I'm extremely excited to share with you guys. I was also able to meet a listener in person for the first time down there. I guess not the first time I've met a listener, but like the first time I've met someone out of state that's a listener. I guess that would be a fair way to put it. So big shout out to Chris. You'll be a large topic of today's show, obviously. And overall, it was just it was really cool. So we drove down to Florida on Saturday, and then we actually returned the following Saturday after spending a week in a beachfront condo. Big shout out to my in-laws, John and Cheryl, for renting the place. It was absolutely beautiful. It was in a resort condo that's right on the beach there. And we actually got to stay in Satellite Beach, which if you are unfamiliar with the kind of northern/central Atlantic Florida coast, that is the side where the Space Force base is, Patrick Space Force Base and Kennedy Space Center, as well as Cape Canaveral, obviously. And just so many historic things have happened in that area directly related to space and astronomy, rockets, obviously. And I was able to partake in quite a bit of that as well. So just a really awesome time. One thing that I got to do immediately upon arriving, which I was beyond thrilled about. Another shout out to Chris, actually, for letting me know. So whenever we were initially planning the trip a few months before, I had looked and they did not have any launches scheduled for the week that we were going to be there. So I was super excited about going, obviously, but I was, a little bit disappointed that there wasn't going to be any launches. But, nothing I could do about that. And I knew that I would still get to do quite a few things that I was very interested in. But lo and behold, it turns out that there were a launch, actually two launches. I was going to say there were launches. So I found out literally a couple of days before arriving that they had indeed scheduled a launch. And it was scheduled for the Saturday of our arrival, just shortly after midnight. I believe it was scheduled for about 12:45 p.m., if I remember correctly. So we drove all day, essentially. I can't fly if it's 8 hours or less. I don't know why. I just can't bring myself to do it. I like driving. I like road trips. And it's such an easy drive from Charlotte down to Florida. You legit just get on the highway 77, and that takes you down to I-95. And once you're on I-95, it's just a straight shot all the way down, through Jacksonville and into the Orlando area, past that, and then finally to Satellite Beach, where we were staying. But I decided to just stay up that night, and I figured, stay up late and hopefully I could see this launch. And of course, being me, I had to photograph the launch. Um, I had never really looked into photographing rocket launches before, so I wasn't too terribly sure about the specifics as far as exposure times, ISOs, and all the kind of really important things that you want to know about for a launch before you get there. Uh, but luckily for me, I was able to find some really useful videos quickly and review them, and I had a vague idea of what I was going to do for the launch to hopefully capture a decent image. So I brought my Canon R5. I was struggling between the R7 and the R5 because the R5 is a full frame camera, which is wonderful for astronomy and landscape photography, etc. But the R7 is an APS-C sensor, which for Canon means a 1.6x crop factor, which for my intents and purposes, it means a closer zoomed in view for wildlife. And I knew that I was going to want to do or attempt to do some wildlife photography while in Florida. So I wasn't sure if I wanted to bring the 5 or the 7. Ended up going with the 5, and it's a good thing because I really didn't get to do any wildlife photography for the most part while I was down there, just due to the extreme heat that we were under for the most part. So I packed up my bag, grabbed my tripod R5. I went with the Canon RF 16 millimeter lens for the shot. And I hopped in the car around midnight and I started driving north on the main highway there, the A1A. And it's a highway, but it's really just like a beachfront road, A1A, famous from the Vanilla Ice song. And anyway, I drove up a couple of miles and got to a parking lot that I had looked up that had free public parking, stopped, unpacked all my gear, start walking out to the beach. And within a few seconds, I was bit. I was like, smack my neck, and then I smacked my leg and I'm kind of ignoring it and pulling out my tripod. And a few seconds in, I realized I am just completely under attack. It was like the coastal trip, but worse. I mean, they were everywhere. I was being swarmed by mosquitoes and no-see-ums, and they were just eating me alive. And I was so upset because I was like, there's no way I can stand out here for half an hour getting eaten like this. But I don't know what to do because I don't want to miss this launch. And I was so crushed. But I knew I couldn't stand there because I was getting eaten alive. So packed up the gear, headed back to the car and pulled out my phone and immediately started looking up, gas stations. And Satellite Beach is kind of a quiet part of Florida. Cocoa Beach, which is just a little bit north of it, slightly more lively, but not like Miami or anything close to it as far as nightlife is concerned. But luckily, Cocoa Beach had an open gas station. So I drove up there as quickly as possible. And they had one can of Voth spray left on the shelf. So I purchased it. The cashier laughed at me and she said, yeah, the mosquitoes are really bad this year. And I said, yeah, you're not lying. They are very bad. And anyway, hopped back in the car. And at this point, I had less than 15 minutes to go before liftoff. So I drove a little bit further north because I knew I didn't want to go back to that same patch thinking maybe I'll get lucky and there'll be less bugs at the next place. So I essentially just drove down the road a couple of miles till I got to another public parking area and hopped out, completely bathed myself in bug spray, and then walked out to the beach and readied myself for the launch. So the situation was the moon was out and it was probably, 40 degrees to the east of where I was standing looking northward towards Cape Canaveral and where the launch was going to take place. And I had a pretty good idea of where the liftoff was going to be. There were lots of flashing lights in the distance, and I was guessing it was this group, but I figured it could have been this other group, and I wasn't really certain. And I knew that, with a 16 millimeter lens, I had a pretty good shot of capturing it, obviously being that wide. As long as I'm pointed in the right direction, I should be able to get it. But I wanted it to be framed up decently. So it was really important to me that, I have it properly centered the way I wanted whenever the rocket lifted off. So I pulled up a launch app. It's called Next Space Flight, actually, if you want to check it out, if you're in the area and you ever want to know when a rocket's going to launch. It's a great application for tracking that. I ended up using it again for the second launch. And I saw that it had been pushed about 15 minutes. So that gave me a little bit of extra time. So I started taking some practice shots with my R5, and I settled on, it was F4, just to sharpen everything up a bit, instead of being wide open at 2.8 with that lens. And I did ISO 200 at night. I know that's crazy. And a 3-minute exposure. So I didn't know how far this rocket would have traveled after 3 minutes, because again, this is my first time witnessing a launch in person. But I figured 3 minutes was probably a good bet. It was just a gut feeling that I went with, and I'm standing there watching the horizon, and I've got the countdown going on my phone, and my heart's just racing, and I'm like anticipating this moment. And up on the, very, very dark horizon, all of a sudden, just this hugely bright flash that was just one of the brightest things I've ever seen in my life. And the light just immediately expanded. Like you could literally see the light expand right before your eyes, and light up, miles around the launch pad. And it was funny because I realized immediately after the flash took place, that I wasn't centered properly. It was actually kind of far to the left of where I was pointing. So I immediately repositioned my tripod and then released the shutter. So it started exposing. And at that point, what can I do? It's a 3-minute exposure. I'm going to let it run. I was using the shutter app, so I wouldn't have to worry about manually stopping the shutter. Side note, I found out with bulb mode on the R5, shame on me for not knowing this before, but if you have bulb mode on, you can tap the screen to start an exposure and then tap it again to stop. So if you're ever in a situation with your Canon mirrorless or DSLR camera and it has a touchscreen and you want to use bulb mode, but you maybe don't have an intervalometer or you don't want to use an app like Shutter, you can just tap the screen, go figure, to start and stop a exposure. So I'm sitting here watching, and I'm waiting because I know what's coming. I've already seen the light, but I know light travels a lot faster than sound. So I'm standing there, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere comes this huge wall of sound a couple minutes after the launch. And it was very loud. It wasn't like deafening to the point where like it hurt my ears or anything like that. Like my ears could definitely take it as somebody with lots of hearing damage. But it was loud. Like it was crazy how much sound came. It was literally like a wall of sound hitting you. And what really surprised me is that the sound continued for a long time after it initially hit. So, obviously it dissipated, as the rocket got higher and higher, but I was really, surprised by how much sound and for how long came out of that rocket. So it was launching to the east. So I was watching, looking above as the rocket was trailing east towards Cassiopeia, and it was, heading towards the moon, and it got just past, I believe it was just past MECO, main engine cutoff, when the 3 minutes had elapsed. So I took a deep breath and I looked down at my camera screen, and man, I nailed it. I mean, it was perfect. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm sure that there are technically better rocketry photos out there of launches in flight. But for me, for my very first time shooting a rocket launch, I could not have asked for a better final image. So I was very, very, very happy with that. If you're happen to be watching the video today, I'll go ahead and I'll put the image up on screen so you can see it. You'll notice that there are clouds that the rocket is traveling through. And that was super duper cool the way that ended up happening, because the light from the rocket kind of fades and then comes back in as it travels through the clouds, which was just a super cool touch. And lucky for me too, because there were actually some lightning strikes like literally seconds before liftoff. And, having watched a lot of scrubbed missions online, I know that a lightning strike can spell doom for a launch real quick. But luckily they did not scrub the mission and it did go through very successfully. So I got the image. I'm definitely going to do a print of it. Super happy with how it came out. And it was just really, really an incredible time. So that was just the first launch, mind you. I did get to see a second one. I won't take you through, all the boring details like I just did on the second launch, but it was on the Wednesday night and it was a little bit later. It was about 2:00 in the morning when this one happened. And it was crystal clear out that night. But there were more lightning strikes to the east, actually significantly more than there were the first time. And it didn't delay anything. Luckily, the launch still went off without a hitch, and it took a very similar path to what the first one did as far as a northeasterly route. And being that it was so clear for that launch, there were no clouds in the image, so I got kind of a real different look for the second image, which I will put up on screen now as well. And just love the look of that one because you can really see the path of the rocket as it travels. So just thrilled with how that all came out. Really couldn't have asked for a better time watching those rocket launches. And I don't think I could have really done any better. I look back, I think maybe I would have gone ISO 100 instead of 200, but that's really being nitpicky. I will tell you, those rockets are just insanely bright. So you'll being that it's nighttime and we're used to, shooting in the dark, your gut is going to say, oh, I need to boost that ISO a bit. But, if you're doing a long 3-minute exposure with ambient city lights in the area and that rocket being as bright as it is, my biggest fear was that I was going to horribly overexpose the photo. But I didn't, 2 minutes or 3 minutes rather, ISO 200 at f4, and it ended up coming out great. So I was quite happy with the end results. So after we saw the launch, mostly relaxed the first day. I think we got in the pool and stuff like that. Obviously watched the ocean. I took in a lot of the wildlife in the area and thoroughly enjoyed that. We had 2 kind of big excursions planned for the week. The first was a trip to Orlando to visit Universal Studios. We did that on Wednesday. I believe it was the Wednesday. Wednesday? No, it was Tuesday. I'm sorry. It was Tuesday, the 5th. The 5th? No, the 15th. I can't remember. Let me look at my calendar. The date's kind of important. We'll get to the date later. Anyway, we went to Universal Studios, and this had also been a longtime dream of mine because longtime listeners of the show might know that I am a huge fan of The Simpsons. I grew up watching it. I can remember some of my earliest memories are shouting across the house for my brother to hurry or he'll miss the couch gag. So, it just goes back Thursdays at 8 p.m. on Fox. That takes me back. Sunday nights too, but Thursdays. Anyway, we got to visit Springfield, USA, which is a theme park area within Universal Studios. It's pretty big, actually. I was kind of surprised. It wasn't like a tiny little one spot area, but pretty large. It had its own ride, which was super cool. So I'm not big on roller coasters or rides these days, but I did definitely have to ride the Simpsons ride. So it's I can't remember the specific name of it, but it's basically Krusty's ride. And you get to sit in a cart while going through this like 3D version of Springfield, and Maggie gets irradiated and she becomes giant, and Sideshow Bob's trying to kill you. And that was great. I think my favorite part about Springfield, USA, as it's called there, is just the fact that they really gave Simpsons fans what they want at this place. So they were showing clips throughout the entire park on TVs, and really the whole time it's just classic episodes. So you look up and, you're watching Canyon Arrow commercials, or, just classic clips from The Simpsons seasons 1 through 10. Essentially, they showed pretty much the entire episode of Itchy and Scratchy Land while we were standing in line waiting for the ride, which I thought was a really nice touch, given the place. I do kind of think they missed a step by not just calling it Itchy and Scratchy Land. I mean, why not? But it was awesome. We got to have a Krusty Burger. We went to Krusty Burger for lunch. It was just a, basic not fast food, but, theme park burger, I guess you could say, that was being sold for way too much money. We went to the Quickie Mart, which was a lot of fun. I had spent way too much at the gift shop, as you would imagine. There were they were actually all out of Bort license plates, which I found utterly hilarious. But that's okay, because I was able to get a Bort keychain, which was really cool. Got a few of those, got one for a friend, and went into Moe's Tavern. Of course, you got to go to Moe's. I got to use the love tester, which was super fun. And overall, Universal was really cool. I will say it rained the whole time we were there, and that was initially we were all like, oh man, it's gonna rain, but that ended up being a blessing because, ooh, buddy, it was hot in Florida. I mean, it's hot everywhere in the Southeast for the past couple of weeks. We've been under a ridiculous heat wave. I couldn't have imagined going on one of the regular 100-degree plus days. I think I would have been miserable. So was actually quite thankful for the rain in this instance. So we wrapped up there, and I'm trying to think if there's anything else worth highlighting from Springfield. It was just really cool. If you haven't been and you're going to Florida or Orlando at some point in the near future, I would highly recommend that you check it out, just because, again, it's in Universal Studios, not Disney. And it's kind of a holdover from before Disney purchased The Simpsons, is my understanding. So I don't suspect that it will be there too much longer. I could be wrong about that, but, Papa Mickey's going to want his properties under the House of Mouse. So I would suspect that it won't be there too much longer. We also got to visit Diagon Alley. Hogsmeade was in a different park, but that was really cool. The coolest thing about it, in my opinion, is just the fact that you literally walk through this little crack in the wall. Like, you wouldn't even know it was there unless somebody told you. And that's how you get into Diagon Alley, kind of like in the books. Which was awesome because you like walk through this little crack in the wall, and then all of a sudden, bam, you're in like Harry Potter world. There's a dragon hanging off a building, breathing fire. I mean, that was really something else. Very, very cool. That was probably my wife's highlight of that particular day because she's a big fan. But yeah, great trip. And yeah, I would definitely recommend Springfield, USA, to anybody who happens to be in the Orlando area. All right. I was saying the 5th earlier. It was the 15th. The 15th was the day that I went. And that ended up being pretty important and very coincidental, I guess is the best way I can put it. And I'll explain why here in a few moments. But longtime listeners of the show might know that a long time ago, I was doing an episode about the Celestron C8. And I was talking about Schmidt-Cassegrain scopes, and I had mentioned how I would love to have one day. That has never changed. Obviously, this is a like a beginner friendly channel, is how I always tell people about it. The podcast, but we have lots of, way past beginner all the way to expert listeners as well. If you enjoy astronomy and astrophotography and having a good time, you generally enjoy the Astrocast. You're good people. But one of our listeners, the aforementioned Chris, he heard me say that. He heard me talk about whenever I mentioned hopefully getting a Schmidt-Cassegrain one day. And he kind of tucked that away mentally. He ended up becoming a Patreon supporter and has been for a long time. I very, very much appreciate that, Chris. That goes without saying. And shout out to all of our Patreon supporters and members of the Discord. You guys are more like family than supporters at this point. So big thank you to all of you from the bottom of my heart. If you'd like to join that group, by the way, you can do that at patreon.com/the Astrocast. We would certainly love to have you as part of the group. But yeah, so Chris had messaged me before I headed down to Florida. He actually lives in the Orlando area. And he had told me that he had something that he wanted to give me. I was a little confused at first, and we started talking. And well, why don't I just do this? I am going to read the letter that Chris gave me on the 15th when I got to meet him and shake his hand. And then I will talk all about what happened afterwards. So Chris writes, "Hey, Rue, longtime listener here and proud Patreon supporter." Thank you, Chris. First, I just want to say thank you. You're doing an incredible job with the podcast. Week after week, you've created something truly special, not just in the content itself, but in the amazing community that you've built around it. The Discord isn't just a chat room. It's a space of curiosity, support, encouragement, and shared wonder. For anyone not in there, they're absolutely missing out on something remarkable. I couldn't agree more. Thanks to the podcast and that incredible Discord crew, I've gone from casually shooting with a C-Star S50 to building a full astrophotography rig consisting of the ASI 585 MC Pro, the ASCAR SQA55, great combination, love that, a Star Adventure GTI with an ASI Air Plus, and an ASI 120mm guide cam and scope, with guiding now running at 0.6 to 0.7 arc seconds. Absolutely love that. Exact same setup that I have as well. That's something that I never thought I'd be capable of. That leap and that growth, it all started with your podcast and was carried forward by the community that you have brought together. Now, the real reason I'm writing, I'd like to gift you something meaningful. I remember you once mentioned on an episode how you'd love to own an SCT one day. Well, this is my way of expressing deep gratitude to you and your podcast. I would be honored to gift you for free my late father's telescope, a Celestron Nexstar Evo 8-inch SCT. One of his lifelong dreams was to explore the cosmos, even if only from the backyard. He was a space nerd long before it was trendy. As a kid, he watched rocket launches from his backyard during the Mercury program. That early passion never left him. In fact, he eventually achieved his dream job, working at NASA, helping astronauts prepare for and return from their missions. Later in life, he set his sights on astrophotography. He bought his Nexstar SCT with the plans to dive in, but sadly, he never got the chance. He passed away on July 15th, 2020, while working in the COVID unit at our local hospital. He gave his life helping others the same way he'd spent his whole career, healing, mentoring, and teaching. Just as he passed his love for space on to me, I now want to pass this piece of his dream on to you. This telescope is more than just a corrector plate and mirrors. It's a legacy. And I see today, July 15th, as the perfect day to hand it off to someone who won't just use it, but someone who will honor it. I know that in your hands, this light bucket will shine once again, not just pulling photons from distant galaxies, but continuing to teach, inspire, and explore, both for you and your listeners. I've included a few accessories he collected for it, some of which I also use in my current rig. I hope they serve you well on your journey. You and the community you've built have given me so much knowledge, encouragement, and the confidence to pursue something that once felt out of reach. This gift, in a way, is my father's final lesson, a continuation of his mission to share, to teach, and to always look upward. May this scope bring you many clear skies and maybe, just maybe, a quiet whisper from the stars he always dreamed of touching. Rest in peace, Mark Edward Stearns, December 7th, 1955 through July 15th, 2020. With deepest gratitude, Chris Synott Stearns. So I lost my dad 2 years before 2020 rolled around, Chris. And I did not have the type of relationship with him that you had with your father, but I very, very much can appreciate where you're coming from with this. And all I can say is that I am just beyond deeply honored to have this treasure in my possession now. So Chris did indeed give me the 8-inch C8 essentially from Celestron, along with a 0.67 reducer from Celestron and some other little doodads here and there. And I'm beyond honored to have it. So it will absolutely be dedicated to Mr. Stearns. May he obviously rest in peace. And all I can say is your father sounded like an absolutely amazing man, Chris. And I'm just really touched and honored to have a piece of his legacy live on through myself, through the show, the Discord, the Patreon, and everything that surrounds it. So thank you so much for that. Chris is, like I say, he's an absolute stand-up guy. Himself and a friend of his actually have a YouTube channel called Astrocast. It's really cool. They're getting up and started right now currently. I'm going to link to it in the show notes. And if you guys would like to check it out, obviously that would mean a lot to me and to Chris. I don't know how much content is up there yet. I know that he told me that they're working on getting a lot more, stuff on the channel in the near future. So good luck with that, Chris. And obviously we'll talk about it more on the show in the future. So sorry, I got a little bit choked up there talking about everything, but it means a lot to me because I didn't get to have a super close relationship with my father. And it's really, really cool that you did. And it means a lot to me to be able to take a small part in, passing that along. And you're absolutely right that it will be put to good use. I've actually already started work on getting the 8-inch Schmidt up and running. You guys probably know once I get started with something, it might take me a little bit, but I will get there. I'm a very, very persistent man in that way. So I got a 3D printer. As some of you may know, I've mentioned it a few times on the show before. And 3D printers are awesome for situations like this where you may need a few parts that you don't have, and maybe you don't want to spend $60, $70 every time that you need a little doodad for your telescope. So I was able to 3D print a 8-inch Batinov mask, tri-Batinov mask rather, the kind that you can use for collimation as well. And I immediately said, I want to put an autofocuser on this. And I went and looked. And of course, ZWO is happy to sell you for $70 an aluminum bracket to attach their $200 autofocuser, as you would imagine. But I found a 3D print file for the bracket. So I'm hoping that this will work. It's actually four separate pieces that I printed out that should allow me to attach the autofocuser. If it doesn't work well, obviously I'll drop the coin to get the proper aluminum bracket from ZWO. But anytime I can avoid purchasing something by using my 3D printer, I always try to. So this time will be no different. Obviously, we'll probably have a lot of content come on the show out of the new scope. I am like beyond excited to have it in my possession. I look at it every day and just kind of lick my lips and tent my fingers in excitement. It's like any other C8, 2000 millimeter focal length, f10. And with the reducer, it goes down to, I believe it's 1280 millimeters at f6.3, which, man, oh man, that is going to be really sweet for getting close-ups. I'll be ready for galaxy season, so I'll be able to finally partake in the springtime when it comes around. So I'm beyond excited about that as well. And just overall, I'm stoked to have it. So it was super cool that it happened to be July 15th, when me and Chris got together. And like, what are the odds of that? I mean, his father passing away July 15th of 2020. And then me and him, two people who've never met before, who live, 4 states away from one another in completely different lives, happen to meet up the day of 5 years later. I mean, if that's not serendipitous, then nothing is. It was it took me back. I was taken aback, I should say, whenever I was reading the letter and kind of realizing, the timing of it all and everything. So just want to once again say, a huge thank you to you, Chris. Thank you so much for gifting me with the scope. I've said this to you probably 3 times now, and I will probably continue to say it, but I feel like I am holding it for you. And if the day ever comes that you'd like it back, you just let me know. And until then, I will treat it with all the respect it deserves, and definitely will be giving it a great home. All right. So after picking up the Schmidt Cassegrain telescope, the next thing on the agenda was for Thursday. So Thursday, we had planned to go to the Kennedy Space Center, which was definitely the highlight of the trip for me, without a doubt. It was about an hour to drive there from the house, kind of off in the middle of nowhere, really, in Cape Canaveral, but in a really great location, obviously perfect for launching rockets, which is why it is where it is. And the number of things that I got to see are just kind of ridiculous when I think back on that day and look at some of the photos that I was able to take. So if you've never been to Kennedy Space Center, I had never been before, a couple weeks ago. First of all, I highly, highly, highly recommend that you go, because the amount of historical things that they have on display there is just absurd. I mean, everywhere you look, there is something historical, and it's a functioning spaceport right there too. So you see the VAT, which is I think they said it's the largest building in the world. So you see it whenever you are taking the bus from the main area of the Kennedy Space Center. So you go in, I want to say we paid I can't even remember how much the tickets were, to be honest with you, but you go into the Space Center, and then if you walk down a little ways, there's a shuttle that you can get on. And then that shuttle takes you about 15 minutes over to where the Saturn V is stored. So they have that in a separate building that's about a 15-minute drive away. And on the way there, you get to see the actual vehicle assembly tower or building. I can't remember if it's tower or building. I remember they said it's the VAT, so I believe it's tower. But this is the most absurdly large building you've ever seen in your entire life. I mean, it's literally where things like the Saturn V and the Atlas are built. So it needs to be very tall, obviously, to hold these rockets. And indeed it is. And I'm pretty sure they said by volume, it's the largest single structure in the world, if I remember correctly. Very, very, very cool to see that. And I actually got to see the crawler as well, which is the vehicle that actually takes the rockets from the VAT to the launch pad at a mighty speedy 1 mile per hour. The driver made sure to point that out. So they obviously take their time when moving those very, very large rockets. And so we drove over there after standing in line for about 20 minutes at the Starbucks, waiting on a pastry for my wife. She wanted one, and apparently they make them from scratch at the Kennedy Space Center. No. But anyway, so we drove over, and it's a little unique. So you're waiting outside the building, and then after a little bit, you go in to this large kind of waiting area, and you sit through a little bit of a presentation where they talk about the space shuttle program and the Apollo program, and they play a lot of audio clips from the launch of Apollo. Anyway, the doors finally open up, and you're able to walk into this absolutely massive room. And right there, as soon as you walk in, literally hanging from the ceiling on these giant pillars is the Saturn V rocket. So it's just right there. So once that door opened and I looked up and I saw one of those 5 engines, I just immediately kind of like bolted past everyone and craned my neck up and just sat there just like that for just like jaw on the floor, dumbfounded at the size of it. Like you see photos, you hear stories, but seeing it in person, there's just nothing like it. I mean, it was without a doubt the coolest man-made thing I've ever seen in my life. And just like when you sit back and you think about like the man hours, the engineering, the lives that were put into creating this absurdly large rocket, which, you know, for the longest time was the largest, you know, spacecraft ever made. It's really breathtaking. And standing under those 5 engines, man, you know, nothing like my Lego model, that's for sure. Because it's wild. I took a lot of video while I was there, and I thought about playing the video on the podcast, but I don't know why. It just didn't sit right with me. And I went back and watched the video, and it does not convey the scale very well. So I'll probably show a few photos that I did take while I was there. If you happen to be watching the YouTube version of the show this week, you can check those out. You can also go to our Facebook page, obviously, and check them out there. I've posted a few of them as well. But yeah, man, seeing that Saturn V in person. So they got it split into 3 separate stages. And when I first heard that, I was a little disappointed. I was like, man, I want to see it whole. I want to see it whole. Cause I don't know why, but I had it in my head like that they would be kind of like separated from each other and upright, but that's not how they have it. They have it horizontal, so you can see the whole thing. and the stages are all back to back. So they are like set up in the way that they would break apart in the sky, essentially. So the cool thing is that you get to see the other engines, obviously, since they're split apart into the different stages. And you get probably the best possible view that you could get of the rocket from a ground level view. So definitely was not disappointed in the setup at all. And I must have walked the whole thing 4 times back and forth just because I was just so blown away by it. They also had the lunar lander right there, which was super duper cool to see. Obviously a replica. It is an original Saturn V. That is not a replica. And, I'm not, obviously we left part of the LM on the moon. But I'm not sure if part of what I saw was original or not. I'll have to look that up sometime. Someone tell me in the comments if you know. But anyway, it was incredible. Seeing all of that was absolutely amazing. That's definitely where I spent the most time under the Saturn V. I walked through all the little historical areas and got to see, all the spacesuits and the watches and the computers and you name it. I saw it and thoroughly enjoyed it. We went back to the main building for the Kennedy Space Center, and then we went into a different area where we sat through like another launch sequence type situation. And it was really cool because it was for the Space Shuttle Atlantis this time instead of the Saturn V. And it was this like huge planetarium like screen that you were watching the Atlantis on. And then as soon as the video wraps, like it leaves you with this image on the screen of the Atlantis. And then the walls literally split apart. And behind the screen that you were just looking at is the actual Space Shuttle Atlantis. So it's actually there. And I wasn't expecting that at all. I didn't realize that the Atlantis was there at Kennedy Space Center. I mean, it didn't surprise me afterwards thinking back on it, but I didn't realize that it was there. So that was something that completely surprised me. And my jaw hit the floor. Being able to see that up close in person was incredible. Biggest glider ever made by far. I mean, just so close. And they had the cockpit doors open that, the Hubble was famously launched out of. They had a scale model, like 2-scale model of the Hubble on display as well. I sat there staring at that for a good while. That was super duper cool to see. So yeah, the Atlantis, definitely cool. Was super stoked to see that. We when we wrapped up, we went to the gift shop, obviously, and credit to my wife. She is a saint because she let me just go nuts in that place. And I spent way too much money at the Kennedy Space Center gift shop, and I have zero regrets at all. I'm actually wearing a $50 Kennedy Space Center rocket t-shirt right now. I didn't realize until I got it up there that it was $50, but I wasn't going to put it back because I needed it. I got like Mercury patches. I got Apollo patches. I got a Christmas tree ornament. I got a NASA travel mug that I can, drink my water out of. Keychains, pins. Oh, I got a lot of pins. I went crazy with the pins. And I even got a coin as well. I can't remember which space program it is on the coin, but I got a coin. Just way too much money spent, but it was totally worth it. Would I do it again? Absolutely. Do I recommend that you do it? Absolutely. Definitely go check out the Kennedy Space Center if you haven't, and you will certainly not regret it. So definitely enjoyed that. And unfortunately, when we were done with Kennedy, that was on Thursday. Friday, I was going to Fort Pierce, which is about an hour and a half south from where we were because I was meeting a colleague of mine named Matt down in Fort Pierce for lunch because we both work remotely. He lives in Boca Raton and I obviously live in Charlotte. And we had never met before. And I figured, if we're only 3 hours apart, we have to get lunch. And he met me. I wasn't feeling too hot that day, though. I could just tell something wasn't right. I had the tickle in the back of my throat and all that kind of fun stuff. And long story short, I ended up getting really, really sick from Florida. Thank God it happened at the end of the trip and not the beginning, because I would have been so beyond miserable had I had to have endured, Springfield and Kennedy Space Center while I was sick. But I ended up with bronchitis, like really bad. I could, barely breathe. I ended up going to the doctor, got on some steroids and albuterol for breathing. They didn't prescribe me antibiotics, though. And even though my breathing had largely improved by that Sunday when I ran out of the steroids, I could still tell that I wasn't right. And by this Monday, I was still so unwell that I went back to the doctor and they finally prescribed me antibiotics. So thank God for that. I should say thank science for that, because I definitely needed them because I was and still am a bit ill. I'm still, recovering. I'm on the mend now. Thank goodness. I can definitely tell that I'm getting better. But I still have a little ways to go. So hoping that by the end of this course of antibiotics, I will be 100% better. But in the meantime, hey, I'm back. So I'm glad to be back. And sorry I was gone for a couple of weeks. Like I say, I hate missing time and missing a week for an episode, but we all got to take our vacations now and then. We do have like a lot of cool things to announce in the coming months. One thing in particular I'm going to be announcing probably in September, maybe August. I don't know. We'll have to see. But there's kind of a big announcement that I'll be making in the coming weeks. So we'll have that to very much look forward to as well. So yeah, if you go down to Florida, definitely bring a camera because man, oh man, the photography that you can do down there is just unreal. It's so freaking cool. All the things that there are to see and to do and experience. And I just, I couldn't have had a better time. It really was awesome. It's a shame I got sick, but what are you going to do? Sometimes you get sick. I hadn't been sick since 2020, or not 2020, 2021. I think we made it like a year or two before we got COVID, me and my wife. But I hadn't been that sick in many, many moons. So kind of sucked to have that happen, but finally on the mend and happy to be back. So really looking forward to digging in with the Schmidt Cassegrain. I ordered a few pieces for it that I needed. I needed some extension tubes because it's 105 millimeters of backspace focus that you need. I'm going to run it with the 294, at least initially. Maybe at some point I'll get a 2600, thinking about it. But for now, the 294 will be paired with that. And I also got my first off-axis guider. So that will be obviously a requirement. At that focal length, you kind of have to have an off-axis guider. So that should be interesting to figure out. I watched a few videos on it. Seems pretty straightforward. Insert the prism so where it's not covering up the sensor, but it can get light, obviously, from the main scope. So I'm definitely going to kind of document the whole process as I move along. We're lucky we're kind of getting into the planetary months now. Jupiter will be getting higher and higher. Saturn is edge on right now, so probably not the best time to check out Saturn, but I will certainly be checking out Jupiter and those Galilean satellites at 2000 millimeters. So beyond excited to be doing that. And just another real big special thank you to Chris for gifting me that scope. It means a lot, man. And just thanks so much for doing that. You couldn't have found a better home for it. I promise you that. All right, guys. So I know this is not a super long episode, but I am doing a video cut here, and it takes quite a while to edit these, and I definitely want to make sure that we get this out on time. So I think I am going to go ahead and wrap it up, but just really thrilled to be back. We will be back obviously next week with another new episode, and we'll probably get kind of deep on some astrophotography centric topics next week when we return. So definitely come back and join us for that. In the meantime, hey, it's still pretty close to new moon, so you got plenty of time to go out and image if you have clear skies. You wouldn't believe it, but I had clear skies during new moon for the first time, and I don't know how long, and I couldn't take advantage because I was too sick. You got to love that, right? So go figure. But if you get the chance to, definitely make sure to get out there and get those images. If you haven't taken a dark sky trip yet this summer, there's still plenty of time to do that. Get away for one night, get away for a weekend, get away for a week. I can't get away for a week, but I can get away for a weekend. And I definitely am planning on doing that before Milky Way season is out. So make sure that you take advantage of it. If you have any questions or comments for the show, please feel free to email me at ruastrocast@gmail.com. If you would like to join us in the members only Discord, you can do that by going to patreon.com/the Astrocast. You can join for as little as $1 a month. I'm not doing the Patreon because I'm getting rich. I do it because I love the community, and it helps pay for the serving of the show. So thanks so much for tuning in this week to the Astrocast. I'm your host, Rue, and as always, clear sky.